In this lesson, we're going to express very large and very small numbers using scientific notation. So for our first example, we're going to be writing each number in standard form. Before we do that, let's take a look at the form of scientific notation. Scientific notation is going to have the first number is going to be written where it's greater than or equal to 1, less than 10, and then it's always going to be times 10 to the nth power, which could be a positive or negative integer. So notice all of these are written in scientific notation where the first number is greater than or equal to 1, less than 10, and then we have times 10 to the something power. So when we write something in standard form, we need to look at if we have a positive or a negative exponent. If we have a positive exponent, we're going to be multiplying by 10 and moving the decimal to each place to the right. When we have a negative exponent, we're going to be dividing each number by 10 and moving the decimal place to the left. So when you've got a positive integer, we're going to be moving the decimal to the right, because we're multiplying it, where if you have a negative integer, you're going to be moving the decimal place to the left because you're dividing by that 10. So let's take a look here. I have 7.63 times 10 to the 6th power. So what that means is that I'm going to be multiplying by 10 6 times, meaning I'm going to be moving my decimal place 6 places to the right. So I'm going to start here and I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And now I just need to have some zeros for place values. So our number then, let's see, it is 7,630,000 in standard form. Now notice that our next number has a negative exponent. That means that we're going to be dividing by 10 3 times. And so I'm going to be moving my decimal place 3 places to the left. And when you do that, you need to make sure that you put your decimal before, and then you need to add the zeros. So I'm going to have an answer of, I'm just going to put a 0 before that, and then I've got 2 zeros, 1, 8, 5, 3. So again, when you've got a positive exponent, you're moving that decimal place to the right, and when you've got a negative exponent, you're making it smaller by moving it to the left. All right, so for the next one again, I've got a positive exponent, so I'm going to be multiplying by 10 5 times, moving that decimal place to the right 5 times. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and again, I need to have my zeros for my placeholders, so I have 5, 2, 4, 3, and then 2 zeros. So my answer written in standard form is 524,300. All right, and for our last example, again, I've got a negative exponent, so it means I'm dividing by 10 4 times, moving that decimal place 4 places to the left. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, and then add my zeros. So I've got 0 point and 3 zeros, and then 90023 is my answer in standard form. All right, so for our next examples now, we're going to be writing these in scientific notation. So the first thing I need to do is I need to then make the first number where it's greater than or equal to 1, less than 10. I also like to look at it, and if that number is greater than 1, I know it's going to be a positive exponent. If it's between 0 and 1, then I know that it's going to be a negative exponent, or I should say just less than 1. So this is going to be a positive exponent, and I need to make my new number has to be then greater than or equal to 1, less than 10, and so I'm going to have a 3.6. Now, I need to then count how many places to put it back. I would be moving 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I get 10 to the 5th power. And one way to look at that is that I made my new number, that 3.6, I made it smaller, so I have to have a big exponent to make up for it. All right, so for our next one then, We have 0.00672. So this one is greater, it's between that 0 and 1. And so I know it's going to be a negative exponent. And so I need to place the exponent where it's going to make that, the new number has to be greater than or equal to 1, less than 10. So I'm going to have 6.72. Now I'm going to have times 10, and I know it's going to be negative, but also take a look here. I'm moving to the left, 1, 2, 3, to put it back to the negative third power. And another way to look at that is that I made my new number bigger by 3 places. So I now have to have that new, the exponent has to be then smaller. All right, again, 84,209. I've got a big number. It's greater than 1, so I know it's going to be a positive exponent. I'm going to place my decimal between the 8 and the 4. And now I have to have 8.4, and I have to have the rest of this here too because they're not zeros. And then times 10 to the, well, how many places to put it back? 1, 2, 3, 4. So times 10 to the 4th power. And then our last one, again, notice it is between 0 and 1. And so I'm going to have a negative exponent, and I'm placing my decimal between the 3 and the 2. So 3.21, and now times, now how many places to put it back? 1, 2, 3, 4, times 10 to the negative 4 power. All right, in our last example, we're going to be then, without using a calculator, we're going to be multiplying or dividing the scientific notation. And we multiply or divide by scientific notation. We're just multiplying our first numbers like we always do. I would take my 3 times 2, and I would get 6. And then I'm going to multiply my exponents. And remember, when you multiply exponents at the same base, you have to add the exponents together. So you're going to get times 10, and I'm adding them together, so I'll get times 10 to the 7th. 4 plus 3 is 7. So I've multiplied them together to get 6 times 10 to the 7th power. Now for our next one, we're just going to be dividing, just like we always do here. 8 divided by 4 is 2. And now I'm going to have times 10 to the something power. And remember, when you divide exponents of the same base, you subtract the exponents. So 5 minus 3 is 2, and so I have 2 times 10 to the second power. Now for our last one, again, we're multiplying these together, and I will have then 15. I'm going to add my exponents together because I'm multiplying exponents of the same base. I'm adding my exponents times 10 to the 5th power. Now, every once in a while you're going to get one like this where once you multiplied it, it's no longer in scientific notation. Notice how you have 15 and that's greater than 1. I'm sorry, it's greater than 10. And so you need to make that first number has to be greater than or equal to 1, less than 10. And so I'm going to come here and I'm going to make this a new number. And what I just did is I made it smaller by 1 decimal. And so to compensate for that, I have to then make my exponent bigger by 1. So if you make something smaller, you have to make your exponent bigger. If you make something bigger, well, then you have to make your exponent smaller by adjusting that. So in this lesson, we reviewed how to write things in scientific notation.